Welcome everybody to a quick Hearthstone report. We have some news to discuss. Couple of changes, mostly concerning Battlegrounds. Unfortunately, we don't have Lonenko with us right now because it's been a very short notice, so we couldn't quite make that happen, and we didn't want to bother him like on the spot. Let's hurry up. So we're doing it by ourselves, and we're gonna mostly, of course, look at Constructed because that's our main thing. Not as much as we would have expected, or maybe not exactly the changes we would have expected, but definitely two cards that people have complained about.
I can't help but notice that Libram Paladin is unaffected.
Libram Paladin's unaffected. Which, by the way, according to some very strong players, is actually not a good deck at all.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing, right, where, yes, it's not a great tournament deck, it's not a great, like, top legend deck maybe, but it's decently good and, like...
It's got a high ladder win rate.
Middle to high ladder, so it's like, it's very good in the parts that arguably the majority of the player base is playing.
Yeah.
So... nerfing it might still appease that player base, right? Like, nerfs aren't always about the exact win rates of a deck, especially not in those, like, hyper high level of play sort of levels, but it also is about just player experience.
But what we are getting are those two cards hitting some nerfs. Keal'thas, Sunstrider, as was long expected. Of course, unfortunately, he can't be dusted, so people are not going to get anything from this. Even if you have the regular and the golden one, you're getting exactly 0 mana from this. This is, of course, caused by Druid shenanigans, and with the Bloom and with all the new Ram cards and Overgrowth, he's gotten a bit too strong and out of control in the Guardian Animals deck and also the Spell Druids.
I don't hate the change, but this literally only prevents the, like, Innervate, Bloom, Keal'thas, Guardian Animals on turn 2 play, sort of a thing. Yeah, it's not quite 2. If you ram 3, it's turn 4, unless you have already rammed once with Breath on 2, so it could be turn 3, which is crazy. And that is only with 2 with 2 temporary mana spells. You could have more. Of course, if you play Keal'thas and then play 2 smaller spells, one of which is a ram spell, you are going to have the mana to also play the Guardian Animals, so it's a minor change, but in my opinion, it's a welcome one, especially since, of course, I always look at the changes a little bit in the how does it affect me personally category, and I play neither of those cards, and at least Keal'thas is one that I've definitely haven't been particularly happy facing, so that's
exactly.
nice.
That's a really good change, I think. This also prevents the Keal'thas getting activated 3 or 4 times a turn, which has happened. Like, a Druid will just play Ironbark, Bog Beam, then Overflow and more spells, and like draw their entire deck and fill their board on turn 8 or something, which is just filthy. So I think this is a really good change. It just puts a cap on the insanity a little bit, and that's completely fine. I think this is a good change.
Interesting side note, of course, as you said, the multiple spell scenario is probably the one why this is better, but for a lot of scenarios where you face him, making him specifically cost 8 mana would have done the exact same thing. Oftentimes, because in the average scenario, you're just getting 1 free spell off of it, or now 1 cost spell. That being said, I think, as you said, because it can happen multiple times on a turn, it's probably better to do it this way. Especially because the concept of, I guess, bounded accuracy, where the high rolls aren't as extreme. So you are keeping it more consistent. It's still good, but it's more consistent. It isn't as high rolly, so thereby the player experience is about equal.
And that's good. And any Survival of the Fittest, Overflow, and Guardian Animals for 1 mana is still going to be very strong. Just the variance is a bit reduced, which I like. I think is a really good change. Second one.
Mindrender Illucia. From 2 mana up to 3.
Kind of expected this card to be insane when it came out, obviously. And a lot of the control priests have been quite oppressive.
Okay, yes. They are definitely doing well. I have faced some control-oriented priests. I don't think I've ever seen this card played. What? That might in part be because of also maybe not the most lucrative thing against what I'm playing sometimes, or while I was playing the Warlock, they probably didn't even know what I was playing half the time, which is half the fun of that deck. It's never been played against me. That's all I can say about that.
I've played it a bunch against me. And the problem really comes in when it's played really, really early and it denies you a full tempo turn. Like, say you played your Druid, for example, your Gibberling Druid, right?
Oh.
And this came down on 2 or on 3, and for some reason, like, say you had a corner or something, and they'll play like 2 cards from you, and that hurts a lot. And typically you'll sit there and you have like Soul Mirror in hand and Time Rip, and you can't do anything on your turn because like they have all the big cards. So the card hurts you 2 different ways. With it being a delayed a turn, I think is really good.
Dude, you know what I just thought of?
What?
If you Time Rip, right, it's gonna buff the Galakrond in your deck, which is gonna be their Galakrond because they're swapped, right? So even if you could play it, you end up still kind of sort of helping them.
Exactly, that's the problem.
And the random priest card that's added to your hand will go back to your opponent as well.
Yeah. And the best thing you can kind of hope for is that you draw a good card from their deck that you can play, like a minion that you can just still play for tempo.
I have played a little bit of Gibberling. It's probably the one that would be worst hit by this. If you look at
too.
Like Hunter, they can at least push the hero power in there. If you look at the Warlock, that's just a bit of a weird deck to begin with. It hasn't affected me personally that much, but I definitely think it's a sensible change. Yeah,
it's definitely better this way. So that's all we've seen in terms of constructed. Not a lot of other changes. We expected more, but maybe this is good. And I have to say, I think there's always something that people complain about. Like you have Druid, Paladin to a degree, or Priest, or Warrior, or whatever, but the Scholomance launch has been one of the most balanced in a while. In a long while.
Yeah, I think there was definitely some decks that stood out above the rest, but
that's always the case.
But yeah, I mean, there's no meta where there's not a definitive best deck, because that's just how statistics work, right?
The 2 weeks after Outland released, the ladder was 40% Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and I do think that Libram Paladin is definitely disproportionately popular. It is by far the most popular deck. It's not necessarily the most winning. It is still a positive win rate deck, I think, even at the higher ranks.
Yeah.
But nothing particularly oppressive, and the nice thing about the Libram Paladin being very popular, but not groundbreakingly good, of course, is that you also have the thing where decks that specifically are good against it end up being better in turn, and that's always a fun part of the meta, because to some degree the meta does self-balance.
I think it's very hard to, or it's very easy to complain, obviously, and yes, there's always some bullshit, obviously, but on any given day of play, you're probably going to see every class at least once, and no deck is just unfair against everything.
Right, I definitely, now that you mention it, I'm not sure if I've seen every class, every time I hit the ladder, but you definitely see at the very least most.
You see a lot of diversity, so.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have definitely faced more than once every single class in the game in this current rotation, and it's only been out for a couple of weeks.
So it's much better balanced than it's been previous times, so I like the fact that they're not going above and beyond with the changes here. We have some Battlegrounds updates too.
Yes.
Now, we can't speak on this in an expertly fashion, but I'm sure, as a matter of fact, I know that some of our better Battlegrounds players in our Discord server, like Lunenko, who is one of the best in the world, and also Sparrowhawk, have already talked about this stuff pretty in depth, and Ked as well, who are just phenomenal players.
We've had some discussions at the very least about the hero power changes, and I think Malware was also mentioned. I haven't seen much about every single change, but some of them just aren't that significant either.
Yeah. So if you want expert opinions on the exact Battleground changes, join our Discord server, and we have a subsection for that that's always active. Hopefully we'll see you there soon, but now our opinions on this. So the Sorrowless change, this is not the first time we've seen this card being changed.
Yes. Previously, first of all, very easy to miss, right? They moved Gentle Microsoft and Arcane Cannon from the pool.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Which, I guess Microsoft definitely the consistency of Murlocs.
Yeah. Lunenko, if Lunenko was, he would say, now that's a huge change, because now the Murlocs won't go as crazy anymore.
Yeah, and the Arcane Cannon, I definitely seen some builds with them, but I don't know how relevant they are. And that being said, we also don't play that much Battlegrounds. Sorrowless makes sense to me a lot.
Yeah.
Because the last change was they nerfed it by putting it up a tier.
Yeah.
And so now that it's not as oppressive, and it is at a higher tier than it used to be, giving it a little bit of extra stats. I think gave it +1 attack last time. I think it used to be a 2/2 when it was tier 1. But just, giving it a little bit of extra stats makes sense to me.
The reason it was originally oppressive is because of its tier and its effect, not because of its stats, so this is a safe change.
Yeah, that's. I think if you nerf something and it turns out that it becomes too weak, giving it a little bit of a small buff that isn't really going to affect its place. It's one of those things like we said sometimes when there's a nerf and it's you're making this 8 mana card now cost 9 mana. It's that's not a huge change, but it's just gonna cut those 1-2% off, or in this case, give them back where they might become more viable.
Now we have a couple of beast cards being buffed No, being nerfed here, actually. This is Ratbag
Both.
being buffed and Pack Leaders being buffed. We also see
Ratbag is being nerfed to 3 stars.
which is fine, because that's explodes.
So basically they're switching around Pack Leader and Ratbag.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
I definitely think, I don't know how much this is going to affect the strategy in terms of strength. I think drafting your Pack Leaders first before the Rat Packs seems like it creates a weaker board in the beginning. The counterpoint is that I personally would prefer knowing that I can get the Pack Leader for my tactic before I pick up the Rat Pack.
You get your Death Rattle synergies a bit later now, which is, I guess, I think this is completely fine.
I definitely like the idea that you know your strategy is going to work before you have to draft, because Pack Leader is decent with other beasts.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing is that because you get the Rat Pack after the Pack Leader sometimes now, not necessarily, but you often will, that means that actually when you play the Rat Pack, it's also already going to get buffed.
Yeah, might be a bit more consistent now. That's good.
It feels that way, yeah.
Ah, Macaw. We've seen him.
Yes, Macaw has gotten +1/+1 as well because it's a really high tier.
Yes, similar treatment as the Sorrowless, can't complain. It was broken because of its effect, not the stats, so good change.
Yeah, we have Primal Finn Lookout. Has been moved back down 1 tier, I believe. I believe it used to be that low.
Yes. I
Now,
think this is a preventative method, because they took General Megasaur out. It's just a preventative thing, like to not get Murlocs to completely fall off the face of the planet, they did this.
so yeah, I was scrolling through this at first, and I also missed a little segment about the 2 minutes being over. I was like, that seems like a significant buff to Murlocs, potentially. But yeah, of course, it doesn't matter that Murlocs get stronger if you take one of their strongest tools away. Yeah. Now you have to somehow get them buffs more consistently without Megasaur, so drafting those from the Primal Finn is another way to get them, of course. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Now this is the biggest change, I think. Because this card has completely changed its effect. Not Peggle the Extreme Angler.
Kind of, right? So first of all, oh yeah, right. One thing that I should also mention, another change to Primal Finn, of course, that also counterbalances a little bit, is that you can only discover minions from your current Tavern tier or below. Which also plays a role in that Peggle, which is why I just thought of that again. I assume that theoretically that affects all those sort of effects, but it's the only ones or minions I believe that we currently have that generate cards, so... Net Peggle, Extreme Angler. Stats are the same, the Tavern tier is the same, but the effect is different. When this attacks and kills a minion, add a random minion to your hand where it previously was, overkill, summon a 0/2 treasure chest. Feels a lot more consistent.
A lot more consistent. I think this is good because this affects the hand, not the board, and this is like kind of the meme thing where you just like Nat Peggle, like you're completely losing, but Nat Peggle can somehow win you the game just by sheer dumb luck. Yeah,
so couple of effects that it has, of course. First of all, whenever it attacks and kills, not overkill, that's a very minor change. Knowing how crazy stats go in Battlegrounds,
that's a small.
Getting an exact kill is incredibly unlikely.
Exactly.
I guess if you could somehow get poisons on him, which I don't think you can, then that would be a relevant change, but otherwise... I assume poison doesn't trigger overkill. Anyways, but yeah, that's a small change. Not summoning the chest is the big part. Instead, getting directly a minion to your hand means that if you can put it first, for example, you don't have to... I mean, it's probably not more likely to trigger his ability then, but... because you don't need the board space.
Yeah.
You can also have strategies that fill up your board and still play Nat Peggle without having to worry that you don't get the chest.
I think it makes him weaker, but it's probably a good
the downside comes, of course, that not having the chest on board means there's one less thing your opponent can hit, meaning that they're more likely to hit something actually useful. Yeah.
So there we go.
It has upsides. It is more consistent, but it's probably slightly weaker. And I think that's actually almost kind of perfect, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Because... as I said, like, the bounded accuracy, right? You don't want to have a card that can really suck if it goes bad, but you also don't want to have a card that, like, if it goes really well, it goes way too well. Because you kind of want to have, when you draft a card, you want to have roughly know how good it's going to be. And
exactly.
Even if an average just didn't change its power level, which I think it does slightly, then it would still be better because at least it's more predictable what you're going to get.
Yeah. And, is that the last one?
There's a couple more.
There's a couple more. Oh, God. Okay. So we have Mama Bear going from 6 stars to 5 stars, which makes Beast strategy a little bit better. And we have the Great Wolf going from giving +4/+4 to giving +5/+5. So, couple buffs to Beast.
The Mama Bear is by no means a strict buff.
Okay.
Because it also reduces Mama Bear from being a 5/5 to a 4/4 and the buff from being 5/5 to 4/4.
Still.
I do still think it's a buff. As a matter of fact, I believe Mama Bear used to be, way in the beginning, tier 5, 5/5 give +5 +5, then they nerfed the stats.
Tier 6, exactly.
Then they moved her up and unnerfed the stats again.
Yeah.
And now they...
Yeah.
So, like, the history of Mama Bear is going to look very interesting.
I think this is good, though.
Someone should make a graph where it's like, stats of Mama Bear, Tavern tier of Mama Bear is crisscrossing all over the place.
So, the problem was, of course, you had like both the big beast synergy cards here at 6 stars, which is kind of tough to get to. And I think a lot of builds can stall out like that. And having one at 5, one at 6 makes sense to me. I like both these changes. I think they're not going to be super impactful. If anything, the bear one could be quite good. Because now you get it at 5, obviously, and it's one of the more impactful ones with your Ratbag, but...
And I guess it would have been too powerful with its original bonus, so...
We've seen it before, so I guess it is.
Yeah, so I guess it makes sense there. Of course, I think overall a lot of builds have gotten more synergistic elements to them, so... There's also the thing, sometimes the card was nerfed, but would be perfectly balanced now because of all of the stuff that has happened in between.
Yeah. Like the changes.
Yeah, I do like the changes, definitely. And then there is...
Some hero powers.
4 hero changes. First of all, Lady Vash has been removed from the Battlegrounds hero pool.
Cool.
Captain Eudora now gets 5 digs instead of 4.
That makes it worse?
Yes.
Yeah, makes it worse. That is good, because I believe that Lilnenko said that aside from Hearthstone, Captain Eudora was the best hero in Battlegrounds, and also it's Vulpera, so it needs to be bad.
Also, side note, of course, they totally thought it was relevant enough to make that the picture of the article.
No, they did that because we're playing furries, though, not because it's important. They're pushing an agenda.
Then we have the Reno change, which I always thought it was dumb the way it was, so it makes a lot more sense now. Is hero power now is free? Why shouldn't it be?
Yeah.
It's a once per game hero power.
It's a once per game.
Why do you have to also invest 2 mana and duel your turn?
That's true. You could, for super big tempo, and this is what I would ask Lilnenko was here, do you do it on turn 1? Do you just pick up like a big minion, just turn 1, bam, stats?
Depends on the minion. I personally could totally see myself doing that with like Wrathweaver, turn 1.
Yeah.
Bam.
Bam.
Because if you're gonna go for demons and you have a Wrathweaver, turn 1.
Raking.
Ooh.
Exactly. And so that's free now. Should not be a big impact, but I think it makes it a bit stronger.
I mean,
and then
I guess that what you said, like that's
now
in the early game.
Yeah.
Is where it really shines. If you use it late game, the 2 mana difference is probably not going to... 2 gold difference, I should say. It's not going to matter that much.
Exactly.
But I still think it's reasonable to not have to pay for that. Speaking of hero powers that now cost 0, Lich King. That's a more significant change because you can do it every single turn. Give a friendly minion reborn for this limit only.
I think this was good. And I like this too because obviously I like Lich King as a hero. And he should be strong. It used to be that it could only be like the top or the rightmost minion in the very beginning.
Yes.
Remember that. So then I changed it to make it anyone.
Which doesn't... I've said it when they changed it originally. I don't think it matters that much because you're probably going to put it on something that you really want to live, which is the things you usually put on the right side. And
you could also put it on the left because you want an attack effect wise. Like you could put it on a cave hider or something.
Yeah, but it's going to be reborn without the buffs, right? So...
Yeah.
I guess other things that you put on the right are ones that grow as well, like Junkbot or something, which you don't necessarily want to give reborn because unless it really randomly dies early, but you probably then put the reborn on just like your harvest golem.
It's better the way that it is. It's better you can pick it. And now it's free, which is I think good. So
I've heard that potentially it's pretty strong now. I don't think it's gonna be like one of the best heroes, but it's definitely gonna be a significant change.
Alright, what else do we have?
Galakrond now freezes the minions added to Bob's Tavern with his thing.
Cool.
And bug fixes.
Anything important at all?
Well, when... what was it? When you cast Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron while Rattlegore's on the board, the game does not freeze anymore.
It used to?
Apparently.
Huh.
It's probably...
That's
just
good.
Knowing some programming, it's probably not even a thing that happens every time.
Yeah, I like it though. That's Rattlegore's not having that bullshit. It should freeze. It should freeze. When you play Puzzle Box against Rattlegore, it should freeze.
I think the most significant one in theory is fixed several technical bugs that would cause the game to crash.
That's good.
But knowing Blizzard, that just
The
means
game
that
will
there's now
crash just
different bugs that make the game
The
crash.
game will
than
crash
normal.
just as many times, so...
Just for different reasons, you know?
That's the report. Let us
I
know.
wonder if they changed the arena key symbol back to being not upside down.
We will check that after this, actually.
I mean, the patch isn't live yet. It says in a couple
Oh,
of
yeah,
days.
yeah. Well, once it comes live, we'll see for sure. But thank you for watching the video. Drop a like on it if you did enjoy it. And let us know your opinions on the changes. Keal'thas, you're happy with that, and Mindrender. And if you're a Battlegrounds guy, check out our Discord server for sure. Link in the description. One of the best Battlegrounds communities in the world you're going to find there. We got some of the best players in the house. So, some first-class opinions in there. Definitely much, much better than what we can tell you. But yeah, what do you think about this? I like it. I think this is the whole thing pretty good, and especially the stuff that concerns me, the constructed changes, can't complain too much. So thank you for watching. Drop a like, subscribe to TrashcanTV. We're going to see you in the next one. JJ.
That's it.
That's it.